Hello, I'm Joe Schubeck, and I'd like to share some memories with you. My first memory is how easy I got in and out of this car back in 1965. Drag racing became my big desire the day I began reading Hot Rod magazine about the new trend that started in Southern California. That's what gave me goosebumps. In Cleveland, with snow-covered streets, I read and reread the stories by Hot Rod editor Wally Parks describing the upcoming superstars and their quest for more power and lighter cars. But it wasn't the coupes or roadsters that got my attention. It was the all-out rail jobs, as they were called. I read every Peterson magazine I could get my hands on, and my big wish was to someday compete against those I read about, not only in California, but throughout the U.S. Well, as the saying goes, be careful what you wish for. Coincidence, maybe. But I got to know a man who had just opened a speed shop in my hometown. His name was Jack Harris. Soon after we met, he invited me to see what he had just completed building in his home workshop. I was shocked to see a slingshot dragster, a concept that was ahead of its time in 1954. Fitted with a flathead Ford race engine, it was not quite ready to race, but close, when he decided to change course and devote all his time to his racing parts business. Long story short, I inherited a dragster, and Jack went on to create the largest high-performance parts business in the United States. It was called Rush Sales. With the help of some select students and even a few shop teachers in my senior class at Lakewood High School, I readied the car for my first drag race put on by the Akron Cam Jammers. Sorry to say, shortly thereafter, the flathead Ford engine became obsolete by the newer overhead valve Chrysler Hemi. In 1958, I started my business in Lakewood, where I built the first dragster chassis for myself in the basement of my parents' home. With it came my first taste of real power with the kick I got from the supercharged Chrysler. My home turf, Dragway 42, was often invaded by the likes of Gordon Collett and Connie Coletta with the same engine combination, which made for some close competition. At the first NHRA Nationals in Indianapolis, I lined up against Tom McEwen. We both left the starting line together with a perfectly matched pair of wheel stands for quite a distance down the strip. And then both cars set the wheels down exactly together like it was choreographed. I was told the crowd went wild. I think that's when we both first realized that we were not just drag racers. We were in the entertainment business. In Union Grove, Wisconsin, where I was already qualified with my gas dragster, Top Fuel contestant Art Malone asked me to make a run in his car so he could watch how it left the starting line. I did, and that's when the bug bit me. Back home, I converted my engine to run on nitro, and from that time on, gasoline was only for the tow car. Flagman was still starting the races when nitro was reintroduced, and I felt for sure the Flagman had more guts than us drivers, standing so close in between those fuel cars. On the chassis building side of my business, I discovered a breakthrough in metal working technology that led me to develop a one-piece, no-weld bell housing. Initially, I intended these beautiful aluminum housings for our dragster production only. But when we tested and found our steel version would contain all the shrapnel from flywheel and clutch explosions, I knew that I was headed toward a crash intersection with destiny and would soon have to make a life-changing decision. These grenade-like explosions were a regular occurrence every weekend around the country, caused mostly by showroom muscle cars that were flooding the drag strips during that era. Many drivers and spectators were injured and even killed. The huge need for our Lakewood housing demanded my prompt exit in 1965 from a drag racing career that I had so long desired. It may have been the hardest decision I ever made, but common sense prevailed, and even though I no longer campaigned a race car, I enjoyed producing and marketing a product that saved lives and stayed number one in sales in its category for almost 50 years. The Lakewood high-tech scatter shield was a game changer both for the sport and for me. The late Wally Parks, founder of the NHRA, told me that Lakewood's containment method helped save drag racing because spectator claims had gone over the top and NHRA's track insurance was on the verge of being canceled. But now, as I look back, there has been nothing that has lit my fire more than that time I spent in the seat of my top fuel dragster. I raced against hundreds of competitors in those 9 years, many of whom still remain friends. In my travels, I was overwhelmed with the hospitality shown me, and to pay back, I extended an open invitation to those I raced to be my guest at Lakewood whenever they were in the Cleveland area. Well, I didn't think they would all come at once, but they did, and we had enough fuel dragsters in our parking lot to put on at least an 8-car show every weekend in the summer. 2 popular photos taken outside our shop in 1964 show the stars of that era, like Tommy Ivo, Roland Leong, Marvin Schwartz, Jack Williams, Bob Sullivan, Jimmy Nix, Jerry Baltus, and Mike Snively, just to name a few. It was a repair station to many, but almost everyone agreed it was being part of a special group where all summer long was like Racer Party Central. Today I relive some of those great memories every time I fire up the engine in my vintage fuel dragster at what we call Tackle Fest.
Well, I hope you enjoyed a small portion of my drag racing past, and if you care to see more, don't eject, but watch and listen to what a couple of industry greats, Dave McClellan and George Eisenhart, have to say about the Lakewood high-tech scatter shield bell housing. Clearly a home run for Lakewood Industries, but a painful goodbye to my competitive drag racing career back in 1965. Plus, you'll get a short but special story about the introduction of the Hearst Harry Oldsmobile.